Tonight, Kamala Harris set to make her closing argument among her people in Washington, D.C., holding a rally this evening, just like the KKK did back in 1925. Echoes of Darkness today in Washington, D.C. For more on this horrible news, let's bring in the founder of the Tucker Carlson Network now, Tucker Carlson. Hello, Tucker. Good to have you with us, sir. Can we hear Tucker? Is he there? There he is.
I'm right here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now, Tucker. Hello.
That was chilling what you just said. And it does echo darkness and Birth of a Nation and just a darker time. And I'm not going to stand by and let Kamala Harris take us back to a time when people marched with hoods down the street.
But
in Washington, D.C.
Just to pick that venue, it really tells you the dog whistles are not dog whistles anymore. They're practically screaming about their bigotry.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Confederate troops bombarded that city, racist Confederate troops, and she's in that city. Oh. So, yeah, it's something to think about, I think.
It's definitely something to think about. Well, something I've been thinking about, Tucker, and I'm really grateful that you're on with us today. Thank you for that. I've known you for a very long time, and I've also known you as someone who has basically rejected getting involved in endorsing candidates or even being on the campaign trail on behalf of a candidate or participating in a political rally. You've covered them for your career, but suddenly now you are out there on the campaign trail standing alongside President Trump. What changed for you?
Well, I never thought I'd do it, that's for sure. And I'm sure I'll offend everyone by admitting I've been a very inconsistent voter over the years. I don't like voting. I've never liked voting because I know the candidates, and it's too weird to have voted for someone and then see the person or cover the person. So I try to avoid voting. I just voted for Trump, absentee. I felt great about it. I never thought I would speak at a political rally. I've spoken at a couple. I'm having one on Thursday for Trump in Arizona. And what drove me to it, or at least what changed my mind, I guess, would be everything that's happened in the past 6 months, where it's become completely clear that Kamala Harris is just a stand-in, as Joe Biden was. That it's the man against the machine. It's not a question of is Kamala Harris qualified to be president? Of course not. But lots of people who aren't qualified to be president run for president. The realization that scared the hell out of me and put me at a Trump rally as a speaker is the fact that it has nothing to do with the individual. The Democratic Party doesn't care about the individual, doesn't care who's running for president, whoever works, because the collective is more important than the person. And that attitude is totalitarian. That's the attitude that got millions of people killed in the last century. The fact that it's here that we have a political party, which in some ways is the dominant party. It's the party with all the money, all the positions of power, all the levers. The fact that they have that attitude where they just don't care who the candidate is as long as it's someone who will repeat the party line. I mean, I don't want that in my country because that's the end of America as far as I'm concerned. That's the end of, the recognition of civil liberties, of human rights that make this country unique. So it's really terrifying to me. And I'm happy to be out there fighting it.
Yeah, in other words, you're endorsing your own liberty, which makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to President Trump, July 13th is a huge date, obviously, because that's the date that he was shot in the head and stood up, survived it, and pumped his fist to the crowd to fight. That was the day that Elon Musk announced that he's decided to officially support President Trump as a result of everything that he's seen transpire in this country, but particularly that moment. Was that in any way, Tucker, a catalyst for what brought you to this moment, to the way you view Trump?
Well, yeah. I mean, I spoke at the Republican convention after that. I've been to every Republican convention since '92. I never imagined I would speak at one, but I realized watching Trump, and I think I said this or meant to, that bravery is the indispensable quality in a leader. The bravest man is the leader by definition. And we're led by cowards. And on the Democratic side, they won't even name themselves. They won't even tell you who's in charge. Is it, Ron Klain or Susan Rice or some other faceless creep who's making the decision to say, allow the country to be invaded? I mean, you don't even know. They're not brave enough to say their own names. They hide. And watching Trump stand up, having been shot in the face, as the Secret Service is trying to shield him and raise his fists in the air in defiance. I just thought that was such a remarkable moment. I've never seen anything like that. You couldn't script that. That was not planned. In fact, it was so unbelievable that Democrats accused Trump of making it up, of putting stuntman blood in his ear or something. I mean, they're insane. But it was an authentic glimpse of the man within, and that's a brave man, a truly brave man.
So, what do you make of the left's rhetoric that leads to attacks like this? I know the left has loved saying things like, "Oh, that's a dangerous thing to say." This is what they've been doing for years. But I looked back at what Teddy Roosevelt said right after he was shot early in the last century, and he said from the moment he was shot, still with a bullet inside of him. He was talking about how the outrageous lies that were being told would obviously inflame weak-minded people to take an action like that. And that struck me as true, that you do have responsibility for the way you speak. And here we have Democrats accusing Trump of being Hitler, his supporters of being like Nazis, the fact that he did an event at the same place the Knicks play and the Rangers. Oh, that's just like the Nazis in the 1930s. It's reached ludicrous levels, and I'm concerned that there will be another attempt on his life as a result of it.
Well, there have been, by the way. There have been, and there's a lot going on, I would say, behind the scenes. That's my sense, and not my sense. I know that to be true. And so,
I'm sorry. What do you mean? There's a lot. I'm sorry. On what issue? There's a lot going on behind the scenes to protect Trump.
I'm saying I think Trump's life is being threatened on a regular basis in significant ways.
Got it.
I know that. So there's that, and it shouldn't surprise anyone. And no, it's not Iran. The threat is from the United States. The same people who wrecked your country are the same people who are trying to kill Trump, and the same people who are trying to kill our system and pack the Supreme Court and eliminate freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion and the basis of America. They're, at this point, like, whining about the left is just pointless. If you can't recognize the pattern of behavior this far in, 9 years in, or 4 years since Memorial Day 2020 and the George Floyd revolution, these people are not at all like us. They're intent on ending the freedoms that make this America, starting with the freedom of speech. I mean, they're open about it. They're working on it full time. I got, contacted by the New York Times yesterday, who's made it its business to shut down my right to say what I think. That's the program. It's really simple. So, I know all of us are kind of shocked that this is really happening, but now is the time to acknowledge that it is happening. Their intent is ill intent. They don't care if you die. They've watched, for 10 years now, 100,000 Americans have died every year of drug ODs, and they open the border to the drug cartels. So they don't care about Americans dying. Life expectancy has gone down consistently for rural whites. They don't care. They hate rural whites because they support Trump. So that's who they are. And at some point, you have to stop being surprised, just acknowledge it and do whatever you can to stop them from having power, because they are a threat to your life and the lives of your children. That's not an overstatement.
On the election interference front, I just want to give people more of a sense of what you're talking about with the New York Times. The New York Times and Media Matters have joined forces in an attempt to scare advertisers away from conservatives. In other words, to take away the revenue and the means by which they can broadcast anything to the public. And that includes efforts to go after you, to go after Ben Shapiro. I saw Benny Johnson. I saw Mike Davis. The list goes on and on. The same New York Times reporter working in collaboration with Media Matters to tear all of you down. What does that tell you? And is this just the latest manifestation of election interference?
It tells you that they're totalitarian. There's no limit to what they'll do. They allowed Trump to get shot in the face. They allowed that. The Secret Service under Joe Biden, controlled by Joe Biden, allowed that. In fact, whether intentionally or not, it's immaterial. If you leave your 2-year-old in a hot car and go to the casino for 3 hours and he dies, does it matter whether you meant to kill him or not? No, you killed him. You allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did with Trump. And so at this point, again, it's important just to face reality. If it's raining outside, at some point you have to say, well, it's raining, and I'll take steps. I'll wear a raincoat or whatever. This is a totalitarian movement. It's a religious movement, which is to say it has no limits at all. It's in the United States. I've spent, 9 years trying to deny to myself that it is what it looks like, that it's totalitarian. I wanted to live in the country I grew up in, where Democrats were just misguided, or I just disagreed with them. Maybe I was misguided. I don't know. Who knows?
Right,
we disagreed. Right. That's the world I've always lived in. Now it's very obvious, they've convinced me through their actions, that they have no interest in debating me. It's not about disagreement. It's about destroying anyone who gets in your way. And they're approaching this with religious fervor. Religious fervor sufficient for them to believe things that are insane, like men can become women, or open borders are good, or whatever. Name the lie, but they really believe those lies. And so they're dangerous. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to prevent them from continuing to hold power. And by the way, if they on next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, stand up and say Kamala Harris has a historic victory, is the first whatever they're claiming she is today, and she won 85 million votes, I'm going to say I will accept that result only when you prove it's true. And when you prove it, I'll accept it because I believe in reality. And if you won fair and square, you're my president, and I'll keep you in my prayers. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to take that at face value. And just because Jeff Goldberg screams it at me from the pages of The Atlantic or Morning Joe, Mika cries because I'm an election denier, that's not good enough. We've been through that before. I'm sick of being bullied. If you can prove that you won it fair and square, I will salute you as president. And if you can't, I won't. And I think I share that view with a lot of people. That's not a call to violence. It's a call to defend the system that we have, which is a good and honorable system that they are attempting to destroy. So that's my position.
Also, how many Democrats are promising to accept the result of the election if Trump is declared the victor next week?
Well, of course, whatever they're claiming that you're doing is what they're doing themselves. Trump is going to use the military to hurt his opponents. Well, the Biden administration just changed the regulation to allow the U.S. military to murder American citizens on American soil. It was a Democratic president, Barack Obama, who murdered an American citizen with a drone without even charging him with a crime, much less adjudicating it or trying him. Just killed him, murdered him, and was never held to account. Obama is on his way to becoming a billionaire. So it's like they worship violence, they worship abortion and euthanasia and war. And it's not a stretch to imagine that they're willing to employ violence here. They just changed the regs at DOD to allow that. And it's so horrifying that people are pretending it's not happening, but it is happening. And I'm just saying, that's not the system I grew up in. It's not the country that I inherited by birth. And I'm personally just not going to accept that. I want to live in the country I grew up in, which was fundamentally moderate as a two-party system, not a one-party system, that respected everybody's right to speak and to assemble,
yes,
right, and to defend himself. I mean, that's America. They're the radicals. You're not going to meet anyone more moderate than me, except maybe Donald Trump, who's utterly moderate just by his temperament. He's so moderate that he hires people who hate him because his instinct is to get along with other people. He's the opposite of the extremist. And by the way, I can just say, for whatever it's worth, I'm the same. I don't like change. These are the people who are trying to change this country irreparably and for all time. So my resistance to that is not radical at all. It's moderate. I like the status quo of, say, 1999. Yes. Let's go there.
Well, and obviously it's moderate because you're not doing something radical in order to change it. You're appealing to voters to support Trump. So you are holding on to some optimism about the state of this election. In fact, you've gone so far as to say this past weekend you said out loud, you said Trump's going to win. You said at Madison Square Garden, you declared it. Now, I realize the peril in political projections. You've talked about it for years. I hate making predictions. I'm always wrong. I don't know. How did you arrive at the conclusion that Trump is going to win next week?
Well, I mean, he's, up in the private polling in all 7 battleground states. Kamala Harris is having, rallies in Washington, D.C. That tells you everything. But that's not why I said that. I said it because the people who are supporting Trump are not the people who supported him in 2020 or 2016. If you have, upper middle class white college girls supporting Donald Trump, and they are, then you have a profound vibe shift. These are exactly the same people who put black squares in their Instagram 4 years ago because they were told to support Black Lives Matter. And so I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just noting what everybody knows is true, which is certain classes of people are bellwether classes. Like they know which way the wind is blowing. And all of a sudden, it is no longer embarrassing in the most status conscious class of all, which is affluent college girls, to support Donald Trump. And that tells you that something really deep has happened, has changed. It's no longer uncool. He's cool, and she is not cool. And that's like distinct from all the sort of substantial arguments you could make, for him and against her, or appeals to the, quote, data, which is mostly nonsense anyway. But no, it's just obvious. I was in Manhattan 2 days ago, and like all of Midtown is clogged with people from all backgrounds wearing MAGA hats in Midtown Manhattan. Really? When was that? When was the last time you saw that? Never. Things have changed.
Yeah, they have. So as goes sororities, so goes the country. Is that the takeaway?
The takeaway is when you see 22-year-old blonde girls all wearing exactly the same jeans, and this has been true my whole life. It'll be true forever.
Yeah.
You know, the most kind of status-aware people in your society hear the dog whistle before everyone else. They do. That's just. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm just saying that's true. And you know, they all wear the same jeans. They all have the same haircut. They all watch the same Netflix show. They're all subscribed to the same Instagram channels, and they're all wearing MAGA hats. This country is changing fast.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, you're good at assessing it. Tucker Carlson, the founder of the very successful Tucker Carlson Network. Really nice to talk to you, and have fun next week as the election barrels forward. Thank you, sir.
You're the best, Vince. Thanks.